Welcome to Local Government, Section 3, Conflict and Cooperation Between Governments. If you're wondering why I have this calendar, Ms. Ringenberger has a calendar. Why, Mr. Howden?
I just wanted to thank these guys. They have been doing such a bang-up job with these videos, and they let me speak once in a while, and that's awesome. So, as been the tradition in Civics 6th Hour, they are being awarded the Wildlife Art Calendar for 2020.
And
Thank
who
you, Mr.
knows?
Greenwald.
Maybe if you reached out with some video of your own, we might find a calendar for you too.
Absolutely.
Okay, something to think about.
All right, our main idea, local governments work with other local governments, their state governments, and the federal government to get things done. I think we talked about this again about being federalism, that cooperation, that working relationships that involve, as I said, cooperation, and obviously you're going to have some conflict. And some of the key terms that we're going to be talking about in this particular section is going to be councils of government and home rule. And both of those we'll be getting into in here when we look at our slides.
Yeah, you know, and as we were looking at this section, I started thinking about you guys at home, if you have brothers and sisters, are probably having a few, bumps and whatnot to try and figure out how things are going to get done. Who's online now, or, what are you going to binge watch or whatnot. And you have to, talk that out, work that out, figure out what's going to work between, and as we were looking at this section, I started thinking about you guys at home, if you have brothers and sisters, are probably having a few, bumps and whatnot to try and figure out how things are going to get done. Who's online now, or, what are you going to binge watch or whatnot. And you have to, talk that out, work that out, figure out what's going to work between you guys. So state governments, local governments, federal governments, townships, cities, they all do the same. All right, so let's start with the relationship between local governments. Councils and conferences, these are different types of groups, remember, like a city council or a township conference or something. They have to work together and meet the regional needs of an area. Water usage.
Even things like home health care. We've got different counties that come together and service more like a 5-county area because it's very expensive to do a single county, or you don't have enough people to do that. So
that's one of the things you're always going to have is shared counties like Big Stone County or Grant County. We don't necessarily here have a jail. We have a temporary holding facility in the courthouse here, but if there's any longer term type of jail, then we contract out with, let's say, Candy, Ojai out of Wilmer, or we may have to go to Douglas County, or maybe we go to Big Stone County to have people obviously that are put in jail. That's where they're going to serve their time. So
the conflict really comes, what are people arguing about the most? Money. All right. Is there economic competition between the local governments? Is there business competition? Because everybody wants to, pull in that buck. You see how people are changing their business plans and whatnot online. And I'll give you, like a local piece here is, I volunteer at the movie theater, and we've been closed. And so all of a sudden, you see the movies that would be coming to the movie theater now are showing up online. We got Onward still, but you can rent that online now if you want instead.
what's up next?
But there's going to be conflicts. But then there's also cooperation.
There you go.
Anybody want to say anything about cooperation? You want to work together on this? Seriously.
well, I want to remind you again with the police department and the sheriff's department and the university police, they all come together. If there's an issue, they're going to work together on it. If there's a fire or an emergency, they all go together. So they
And our rescue. And our rescue.
and our rescue and the fire department, they all work together. Our school board and our community work together on various activities. The football field, when operations, that one came up earlier. we're regularly working with other people to make things happen. The RFC was a cooperative.
And one of the things that we also do is we work as far as the city, because we're talking about city government, but we also work with the county. You know, they've been trying to get through and work through places for the department as far as where they're going to house their trucks and things like that for the city of Morris, or for the county as far as where their trucks and stuff would be held.
Now, is the city and the county working together, like one localized garage here, or?
I think it's just county, isn't
I
it?
think it's just the county. I
or
think
county.
one time the city was trying to work through it, but I don't think that really worked out. So there again was the cooperation and some of the conflict about what's going on. So there's a perfect example of what we're just talking about.
That's just like the steam plant on campus is big enough to heat our entire facility here. But because of whatever conflicts that happened, the local school district, we didn't hook up to that steam plant. It's actually large enough to heat our facility. It's large enough to heat the hospital also, and whatnot. And this was one of those lessons as we were talking about our sister city in Germany that they are doing. And so,
and I think one of the biggest things you can take out of all this conflict and cooperation is the idea that this is democracy. This is where everybody, in a sense, maybe has an opinion, or maybe some people don't have an opinion, but it's not in a sense that we're all along the same line where we're just going to do this and that's how things are going to be done. So, some people might be looking at that particular example that you were mentioning, Mr. Howden, and saying, oh, we want to have our own generating system. Or some people maybe in the city say, we want to have our own place to put our vehicles and stuff, and we don't want to go with the county. So, like I said, that's a part of democracy.
absolutely.
And having the ability to control a situation. Sometimes when you are cooperating with different governmental agencies or levels of government, that it becomes much more difficult to manage things and when things go wrong. It's great when things go right, but when things go wrong, then it's who pays what, whose fault is it, who did what, and it just becomes a big issue. And I actually believe that was part of the reason why, like, our school district didn't go with the university, because of what if.
Right, there were too many unanswered questions and too many, the fiscal, how does it get paid, what, to what degree of responsibility and consistency is there? And so, yeah, and are both ways right? Absolutely. But the people had the voice, we voted in elected officials, they make these choices for us. And so that is the process. All right, let's see what's next. Local and state governments, home rule.
You get to write your own charter.
Okay.
We kind of mentioned that earlier here about the city being able to come up with its own rule of government. We kind of already alluded this already with our council manager plan. Remember that from the last section that we talked about in regards to how our city is going to be set up.
We have the oldest charter, the city of Morris does, the oldest charter for a council manager plan. So there you have it.
Our plan the same.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yep. Most people don't.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
All right.
Still talking about conflict again. Sometimes state government, local governments experience disagreements, and we've already kind of discussed that already.
Right. Would, like for the farmers and setting back how far they can till up to water sites and stuff, that would be one of those conflict pieces that we've been dealing with lately.
The buffer zones, for
The buffer
example,
zones,
and
yeah.
that's again, you're dealing with township governments, and you're dealing with county governments, and you're dealing with state governments. And that's why there's a lot of people that don't necessarily like politics, because there's disagreements. And some people, when there's disagreements, they just don't really, in a sense, want to get involved in stuff because they're hard to work through. I think probably one of the great politician leaders that we end up having are people who are able to see both sides of the picture and make some compromises again, And in a sense, both sides lose, if you can say that in the compromise. But one of the things that will compromise, it also means that you do win, and you are gonna get something. And I think that's something that when we're looking at all of the issues, in our local governments, everybody, and you included, you're not going to get everything that you want.
Like the school closings, like no baseball season, like, the government is, our state government and our federal governments are making decisions that affect us locally.
And we may not like it.
We may not, we may appreciate it. We may feel like it's necessary, but not be happy with it. And so all of these kind of things work together. But if you remember the supremacy clause, like the Constitution and the federal government, they take supremacy over the state, and the state government takes supremacy over the local. So they work together, but it's kind of like, as a family, you guys make decisions, but what dad says or mom says,
somebody has to make the final decision. I mean,
Get the final voice.
there's always somebody that's gonna make the final decision. And, it's probably not you.
it's
The
probably
buck stops where? I mean, the buck stops here, so to speak. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. But when they do cooperate, it's awesome.
and they solve problems.
It is awesome, like, if you took it from, like, I'm gonna go back to the football stadium piece, because there was a lot of argument about that, because they're saying, we're spending $1 million on something we're gonna use 8 times a year. And people thought that was like crazy money. But then we got it, and people started using it, and people started seeing different ways to use it. And you can see community glue happening, tailgating before a game and whatnot. So sometimes, when you look at, you gotta, relax and let some cooperations and compromises happen, because just,
And another area is the RFC. I mean, that's a great
Right.
example of our city working with our university to create an area that people can go out and use. And it's benefited. I know, talk to your parents or talk to your grandpas and grandmas about how many people go out there and exercise and use that facility. Again, that's a great cooperation between the city and actually our school district and the RFC as well.
Good.
All right. As for federal funding and whatnot, of course, the federal government has, money for all of our state and local government needs, and they fund through various programs and go from there.
Sorry.
Oh, we hit the trifecta. All of us have had our phones ring. There you go. Anyways, what do we want to say?
Sorry, I gotta check out for a second.
There you go.
I know, that was mine too, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so the federal government, works right along with this. And right, as it says, as it is, there's sometimes conflict between local, state, and federal government. Right now, like if you are watching the news, the state of New York is begging the federal government for help. And actually, finally, the federal government, has done some things. They've called it a national emergency. And so when they do that, when they declare it an emergency, then they can provide more assistance. So there was conflict. Governor Cuomo from New York, he was definitely in conflict with the president of the United States. But things are progressing and more assistance is coming to New York, California, and Washington. So there was conflict and now there's cooperation. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and that's pretty much how it normally is.
Yeah, and you're going to see this on all levels of government, and just expect it. I mean, if governments aren't arguing at some point, something's wrong with government. We have to have that. We have to have that disagreement, because our democracy has to give us a place so that all voices can be heard.
And often the different levels kind of zigzag between parties and philosophies. And, we all pretty much agree on what needs to be done or what we would like. It's how it's done that differs with parties. So if you think about how you want to get something done is what's different, and then you've got different political parties at different levels, it makes it much more difficult to get some things done. So naturally, conflicts occur.
There you go. Guess what's on the next slide?
Oh, no, not a graphic organizer.
Yeah,
It
graphic
is.
organizer.
Say it isn't so.
Ta-da! A chicken feed graphic organizer.
Lovely.
Again, love doing this. Wouldn't want to do it all the time, but we've been having some fun. Hopefully you enjoy listening to us three here talk, and hopefully you've been working on your study guide sheets, and we miss you. And
Hopefully
take care, okay? If you have any questions, again, give us an email message, get a hold of us, okay? Otherwise, keep talking to your parents, bring up some of these ideas that we're talking about here, and have some discussion, and maybe they can bring up some other examples of things that maybe that have happened in their life.
All right. Have a good day.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.